Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming along, and I'm really pleased to be speaking here tonight. I noticed that TEDx has already got its own little hashtag, but I've put my own in there. So if you put, whether it's Instagram or Twitter, then One Mile Closer has got a few more photos on Instagram, because I couldn't quite get them all in here tonight. And obviously we've only got supposedly 15 minutes, so I've cut down the videos a little bit. So if you want to actually see the full videos, go to onemilecloser.com and click on the YouTube link, and we've got a load of silly videos up there as well.
Opportunities nowadays for people to take, that if you have any dreams, just really push hard to make them happen, and if you're really committed to something, you'll be surprised how much support there is out there for you to make it happen.
Other people have other dreams, they've got their own Everest, and it's just important that you follow your dreams and just make sure that you're committed to make it happen.
I love that video. I love the music. They had it composed for them. This is a very long and detailed story, which I'm going to have to condense right down. But my brother and James Hooper, when they were about 15, decided they wanted to climb Mount Everest. And for the next about 3 minutes, I'm going to summarise that journey and then move on. So this is their first Himalayan peak they wanted to climb. This is actually Camp 2. This is not the summit. This is just the only level place on Amador Blanc where you can put a tent. But I love the photo because it's obviously terrifying. But it's not just, they're not just there to show off. It's literally the only place you can go and get anything level on it, because the mountain's like this. So after doing lots of training and lots of fundraising, like I told you, this is an abridged story. So after lots of fundraising, lots of training, they found themselves on Everest. It was a little bit more complicated than that. But this here is a photo on summit day, which is taken at night because the conditions on Everest are so extreme that you only have a very narrow window to climb the mountain. And that involves waking up about 2 o'clock in the morning to start your ascent, so that you can be on the mountain at sunrise and take your photos and get down before the sun starts melting snow and makes all the conditions unstable. This is the view, kind of looking down. They're obviously walking towards the summit. What you can't necessarily work out here is these are very overhanging. These are called cornices. So you walk along these tracks and just hope that the tracks which you're going along represent the top of the mountain, because over here the wind blows it across and it builds over these kind of false peaks, and you stick your ice axe through and see daylight beneath you, and you realise you need to move a little bit across. And they are roped in, and this is called alpinism. They just clipping into the ropes to make sure you're to some degree safe. On May the 19th, 2006, my 19-year-old older brother found himself on the summit of Mount Everest. It's obviously a very proud day for everyone involved. Luckily, this is not my brother's feet, although his feet are always just not particularly pleasant either. But this is something which I put on the slideshows to just demonstrate one of the less fun sides of mountaineering. Luckily, Rob never lost any toes. Moving on. this journey.
James, and this is our story. When we were 16, we saw this article about Everest. We looked at each other and said, why not?
People laughed at us and thought we were crazy.
There was a 25% chance that one of us wouldn't come back.
You're gasping for air, it's a mile drop either side.
If you keep on putting one foot in front of the other, you're going to get to where you need to be. It doesn't stop here. We want to become the first people ever to travel from pole to pole using only manpower.
So that's the Adidas advert they filmed in 2007. Obviously, as 18-year-old boys who've had little mountaineering experience, trying to convince people that you're going to climb Mount Everest is quite difficult. However, once you are 19 and you are the youngest people in the country to climb Mount Everest, then suddenly you get a bit more support. So Adidas jumped on board. They were lucky to meet a few very influential people in the City of London who put them in touch with senior people at Adidas. And Adidas flew them out to Barcelona to film an advert with this guy.
We had this dream, climb Everest, and there's no shortcuts, you've got to put everything into it.
Before the World Cup in '98, I believed that I was on the top of the world because I was playing for England, was playing for my country and going to the World Cup. Then after the World Cup, I had such a bad experience. I ended up on the bottom. And then I worked myself back up. It's a round world, it's always turning. And it's tough.
From the North Pole to South Pole and back again. It's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
Okay, that terrible joke and bad reference, which I haven't really explained yet, is after Everest, when Rob went round all schools and talking about his life experience at 19, little kids in the front row go, what are you going to do next? And very quickly, Rob and James pulled this idea together that they're going to travel from the North Pole to the South Pole under human natural power. It turned out to be incredibly complicated, and what they'd hoped would be a 9-month journey turned out to be 14 months. In my brief summary of this talk, then I tried to highlight some of the issues, which are the cold North Pole. Rob actually fell through the ice when he was about 14 hours from anywhere, and he hit his head and was unconscious on the ice. And besides being eaten by walruses and polar bears, one of the big concerns is that if you fall into the ice, then the undercurrents can actually pull you under the ice, you can't come back up. Basically, it's a terrible position to be in, but James ran over and pulled him out of the ice and got him naked and rubbed in the snow, and apparently that helped. So lucky that, so Rob survived that, and I thought that would be the end of the pole-to-pole trip, but it wasn't. The ice was melting faster than it should have done, so sea ice, being sea, should be relatively flat, whereas taking their sleds across the land goes up hills. Greenland's quite hilly, sea should be totally flat, but the sea was melting so they couldn't go across the land. It made their journey a lot more difficult, and they realised it would be impossible to pull their sleds to meet it in time for the boat which was waiting for them at Nuuk in Greenland. So they took dog sleds. They had actually trained for this journey by drinking Guinness to get lots and lots of weight, because you're spending thousands and thousands of calories a day. But they switched to dog sleds, and suddenly they weren't using all the calories that they'd planned to. So it ended up that Fat Rob and Fat James got on a boat, sat down for 2 weeks on a boat, not being able to do a huge amount of exercise, and Fat Rob and Fat James turned up in America hoping to do 100 miles a day of cycling, which was pretty tough. And it was very, very tough at the start, and Rob had Achilles tendonitis, and luckily through various contacts he managed to get good treatment for that. But by the end of 11 months of cycling, which is over 20,000 kilometres of cycling from New York down to Punta Arenas, the southern point of Chile, they were finally cycling 100 miles a day, which they needed to do in just 4 hours, and then they spent the rest of the day talking to local people, filming things for like geography case studies, and playing football. Here they are in Panama, desperately trying to raise some money to go on for the rest of the journey, because it was always running out of money on this trip, and that was one of the big limiting factors. And this is where they finished. So after going to the South Pole, they sailed in to Sydney Harbour to celebrate Rob's 21st and unfortunately final birthday. So, having done all this by the age of 21, he was going back to school, doing lots of talks, and life seemed to be going very well for him. But in 2009, he went to Chamonix in the south of France to go climbing with some friends. I've already mentioned the James. This is a different James. This is James Atkinson and my brother. They passed away in 2009, well, that's basically where their story ends. So that's left the rest of us. So the other James, so Rob's exploring buddy James, and me and my friends, we're just sitting there saying, "Oh, well, how do you get past this?" We've got my brother, who's an inspirational speaker. That his job was literally to go out and motivate children to achieve all they can, and I felt kind of like, how can you sit around and be sad? I did though. So this is 1 Mile Closer. So this is what we came up with. 1 Mile Closer was our idea, and it raised money for education, encouraging people to take up sports, and obviously to remember these two cheeky chaps who we all miss very, very much. So the school in Uganda, we didn't actually have a huge amount of connection, but one of our friends had been doing aid work out there, and he found a very efficient charity where we could actually directly give money to the school and get kind of the best value for money in terms of money in versus results. So in 2009, so we didn't wait around. In 2009, the year Rob and James passed away, a whole group of our very close family and friends, about 30 of us, cycled from John O'Groats in the very north of Scotland down to the southwest, southern point is Land's End. We took about 10 days to do that, and it was great. There's a group of us who've been cycling for ages at school, so I've been doing years and years of cycling. But then other people, like my dad, who's 60, he got on his bike and he cycled the entire length of our country. And this was really great to see actually how the death of my brother had actually motivated not just my father, but lots of our friends to take up cycling and change their life, actually make a real change. So 3 years later, we were all thinking, we really, really loved 1 Mile Closer, we want to be doing it again. And so 30 of us cycled home from the south of France, cycling over Mont Ventoux. So if anyone actually follows Tour de France, it's the hardest mountain in the Tour de France, and we nailed it, it was awesome. I went over 100 kilometres an hour down Mont Ventoux, it was awesome. But again, my dad came with me on that one. 2014, this one was quite special for me because I flew out to Czech Republic on a one-way ticket and proposed to my now fiancée, and she said yes, and then we cycled home, and she cried every day. So she'd done very little cycling, and we got her into that. She probably didn't enjoy it as much as I did because she didn't come to this year's one in South Korea. But this year we had quite a special one this year. Actually, it kind of was taken out of our hands a bit by some of our very close friends in Korea who organised the trip beyond anything we'd actually imagined. So the 60 riders, we actually had 6 support vehicles, and we're all riding in intense groups. And we had Discovery Channel, Discovery Expeditions, which is a Korean franchise brand of Discovery Channel. They had drones and filming us, it was awesome. So if you guys aren't super amazingly in awe of these famous people, then you're not alone. But in Korea, they're really quite famous. It's quite funny. This is, he's gone. So James Hooper in the middle. He's my brother's exploring buddy, and he's obviously now one of my very, very closest friends. And he managed to pull his TV friends along onto the trip, which got us a bit more publicity. So here's me showing off my selfies with celebrities who I'm pretty sure none of you know. But and so Johnny will back me up on this. It says, so 1 Mile Closer members, so in these 1 Mile Closer members, who is the most stylish? There can only be one answer, but So we've been very, very fortunate just recently that Discovery Channel has supported us not just for one, but for two expeditions. So we did last year and this year as well. But rather than just thinking about the cycling, one of the really important parts of this this venture is that we're really changing lives in Uganda. And this is Paul Gasol.